to start.
Rock concert movement number 1. The basic head bob. Ready, go.
And even after a snow day, you're cutting it close. Brad Show with you here, 1:30 on a Thursday afternoon. It sucks. This is what I call aggressively cold. This is that, like, you don't even have to, like, linger in it very long with the wind. And it's not even, like, crazy cold out. It's cold. But
It's time to start.
it's the wind chills. It's not the heat. It's the humidity.
Well, now it's misting, and so it's incredibly slick.
Yeah, it sucks out there. It's the flurries combined with the blowing light snow. Awful stuff. But yeah, when most of Des Moines was closed yesterday, figure, snow day, I think that's the way to go. Phone number is 244-0077. Email radiobradshaw@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/radiobradshaw for almost all of your Bradshaw needs. By the way, am I the only one noticing, like, why are so many trucks ending up overturned? Like, is there something going on? Like, I'm old enough to remember when, truckers were an alternate species that ran on truck stop food and methamphetamine, right? They drove like bats out of hell. Like the best thing you could find on a long road trip wasn't a White Castle, wasn't a Waffle House. It was a trucker hauling ass, right? Because they were on the CB. They were, telling each other where the Smokies were. So you could kind of, at least for, 20 to 75 miles or so, pretend to be the bandit, right? And just kind of follow along with the amphetamine-laced trucker. And maybe this is just rose-colored glasses. But they started, put GPS in. They would up and up and up and up the fines. So truckers became very defensive. Like, their livelihood was on the line. And now they're always in a ditch. They're jackknifing. They're shutting down interstates. Has something else changed? Or is this just, observer error? I'm open to that interpretation. But it just seems every time you look at one of those traffic reports, semi-overturned, semi-crash. Cattle loose on the roadway, particularly, an Iowa phenomenon. But it is a little screwy out there. It's a little slick. And it's just bright enough to be annoying with the kind of haze and foggy, just bleh, you get over the sky. So do be careful out there. This is a bad time to tailgate. There are slick spots. All right, coming up on the show, we'll explain yesterday's gun hearings. NRA not looking so hot. More movement on the immigration reform. And honestly, something I don't think requires any real discussion, just a short explanation, because as we speak, the president's nominee for Secretary of Defense, Republican, Chuck Hagel, is getting grilled, and it's fodder for the talk shows and the pundits. And maybe this is just a byproduct of the modern age. The reasons Republicans do not want Chuck Hagel as Secretary of Defense have not, will not, and will never come up on talk radio, in Senate hearings. They'll literally talk about everything but. Here's all you need to know about the Chuck Hagel hearings. After supporting the Iraq War, saw the folly of his ways. Not real big on just going in and kicking the crap out of people because we can. And I'm not, this isn't a joke. We're not talking about, small wee-wees or anything like that. In all reality, this goes back to the mid to late 1990s in a group called the People for the New American Century, who lobbied relentlessly for President Bill Clinton to go in and invade Iraq. They were weakened. They were a pariah. They had been, at the time, living under almost a decade's worth of sanctions. We could go in, walk over them, show how tough and manly are, this peace through strength idea. And I'm sure President Clinton, I don't know whether he was scared or chuckled when he would receive these pitches. But they went nowhere, and they just laid low and thought was, how are we going to find a president dumb enough to listen to us? Well, they managed to do it. And funny enough, the people for the New American Century included, the Rumsfeld and the Wolfowitzes, most of the Bush administration defense bigwigs were in there. Shocking. Chuck Hagel is not on board with that and the others. He is okay with cutting defense spending. Period. I mean, that's it. That is the beginning, middle, and end of Republican opposition. Real opposition to Chuck Hagel, not the stuff they're yapping about on Fox News or the radio. He's willing to cut defense spending. And this ties into what we were talking about last time we gathered, the Republicans' real agenda. Right, and how all these wedge issues are falling by the wayside and their true believers like the Tamara Scotts are being cast aside, doing the electoral walk of shame. They hit it, now they're quitting it. Lower taxes for rich people and funnel money to their supporters, their interests. Their real base, not the voting base, but the power block. And a big chunk of that is defense contractors. That's why I get a chuckle out of listening to, dupes like Huckabee yammer on about selling arms to Egypt. We'll sell arms to just about anyone. Hell, while we're arming Iraq, we'll arm, their adversary, Iran, too. We'll do that one under the table, but still. More money for defense contractors, bleep you. Chuck Hagel is okay with cutting some unnecessary programs, closing unnecessary bases. Again, if you ever think that maybe Republicans are being honest, and government spending doesn't create jobs. Try to close a weapons program in their district. Try to close a military base in their state, and watch how they react. And you'll see exactly what Republicans actually believe about government spending. Just look here in central Iowa, wanting to shut down the Iowa Air National Guard, turn it into a lesser manned drone. I don't know, is it base? Complex? Glorified video game arcade? I don't know what the official term. And watch every elected Republican in the area, throw a conniption fit. This is what Republicans actually believe when it comes to government spending. Which kind of ties in with the other thing that leaves me scratching my head today, and that is, literally Republicans rooting against America. Economic numbers filtering in, and the big one showing the gross domestic product shrunk by 0.1% in the fourth quarter last year. All right, that's obviously not good. But if you watch a little Fox News or just read Republican, blogs or Twitter feeds, they're almost doing cartwheels. There are some pundits, and remember, people who peddle conventional wisdom are usually really stupid. Saying this gives Republicans leverage in their desire to cut government spending, although, like most conventional wisdom, it's not that wise. The drop was driven by a plunge in military spending, as well as fewer exports and a steep slowdown in the buildup of inventories by business. Anxieties about the fiscal impasse in Washington contributed to the slowdown. This coming from J.P. Morgan. The 22.2% drop in military spending, the sharpest quarterly drop in more than 4 decades, along with the drop in inventories and exports, overwhelmed more positive indicators in the private sector. Final sales to private domestic purchasers, which strips out government spending, was actually up 2.8%. Wages were up, I believe, a little over 2%. Although a lot of that, or big business shoveling bonuses in before the end of the year. Overall, the economy grew more in 2012 than 2011, but we saw with sequestration and plans for the fiscal cliff coming in and cuts to federal spending, the economy shrank. This is the stuff that Sean Hannity, much like his offer to be waterboarded for charity, will never admit to in public again. And that is government spending stimulates the economy, and government spending is down. Here's a fun question for your Fox News loving uncle or mother and her husband. Great pain it leads me to. Was the deficit that Obama inherited bigger than the one, or I'm sorry, was the deficit bigger when Obama took office or now? The deficit has actually shrunk. Republicans love to confuse debt and deficit and to kind of tie the two together to make whatever particular point Chuck Grassley is peacocking about on any given day, hoping that you'll forget the fact he voted to get federal money to build a rainforest in central Iowa. Also involved in Medicare Part D, one of the largest government giveaways to the pharmaceutical industry in history. But who are you going to believe, Chuck Grassley or your lying eyes? So as Republicans celebrate the shrinking economy, expect to see this rolled out as Republicans call for cuts to things that aren't their priorities in what's looking to be a vain effort to get Obama. Again, it's only the purest of heart can pull Excalibur from the stone, right? Only Thor can wield. Was it Mjolnir? Is that his hammer? I'm more a DC guy than Marvel. Republicans are smart enough to know that only a Democrat can cut entitlement programs. Oh, jeez. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Republicans have been trying to, and they had the deal in their hands in 2011 and blew it because they were too chock full of wingnuts. Now, again, things change, and situations are fluid, but Obama gives every indication, at least, that things like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security off the table. And that is a big change from 2 years ago. And while Republicans, again, look at blowing up Social Security, blowing up Medicare, I think it's the Medicaid fight that may actually hold the most sway. We saw this a couple of days ago. A number of interest groups, everyone from the American Cancer Society to the Iowa Hospital Association and more, holding a public appearance to try to pressure Governor Branstad into accepting the Medicaid expansion portions of Obamacare. This was the one loss that Obamacare suffered in the Supreme Court case, and that is that states can accept, obviously, Medicaid expansion. They are not forced to. So what you see is a lot of grandstanding governors, the Rick Scotts of the world, the Rick Perrys, and the Governor Branstads, saying that no, our poor people are apparently too healthy we will not accept 100% of federal funding, 90%. And they use the same excuse. We can't accept it because the government is broke. Will you be accepting your farm subsidies this year? Of course. What are you, insane? Hey, we'd like to shut down, again, your Iowa Air National Guard turned it into a drone facility. What? You can't do that. You must spend the money here. Again, it's priorities. It's FYIGM. So Branstad says, federal government's broken. I don't know if they're going to pay for it, so we're going to turn it down. And instead, focus on trying to make our people healthier by jogging while we continue to make our living off of high fructose corn syrup. Again, I don't know if there's any way to calculate this. I just would like to know, again, how much of our economy is based on that? What percentage of corn is turned into high fructose corn syrup? One of the least healthy things. I mean, short of like lead, Chilean grapes, tainted Tylenol, what other things are you not supposed to, like raw fish out of the Hudson? Short of that level, it's one of the least healthy things you can shovel into your body. And we make a mint off it, but we want to be the healthiest state in the union. Sure, okay. But again, maybe it's just a matter of it's refreshing to see, even if it's unintended, honesty. And with their party out of the White House, fumbled their attempt, as voters just had a way to shut that whole thing down when they attempted, to take back the Senate. To see at least, that inner, we are literally rooting against the government. We are rooting against the success of America. Bad news for America is good news for the GOP. It's nice to see that kind of float through to the surface. All right, Frank, you're going to leave me to drink today?
Maybe we can go out together and drink.
No.
Okay.
Are you asking me out?
No.
Are you hitting on me?
Huh?
Are you hitting on me?
Might be. Well, listen, I'm sure the Democrats there, avoiding politics at all costs here, but I'm sure the Democrats there were rooting for George Bush's 2 wars and expecting them to go so well, putting him in good re-election light.
Well, that's why most Democrats voted for it. Go back and look at the votes in the House and the Senate.
Okay, but why did
that was one of the advantages that Obama wielded in 2007, as he was not in the Senate at the time. He didn't have that pro-war vote like Hillary Clinton did.
Why did they spend so much time then sniping afterwards and trying to cover their butts for their votes because their constituents started...
Because it was a bungled mess. I mean, we started out by sending our soldiers over there without body armor, without up-armored Humvees. I mean, literally, I and friends of mine were raising money to buy body armor to ship over there. Soldiers, given just these plain, Arnold Schwarzenegger could drive it. You see him on trucks rolling down our interstates. These unarmored Humvees were getting blown to hell. So you saw soldiers, rigging up basically sandbag holders on the sides of these things.
Obviously, that wasn't Rumsfeld's plan to get in there and rebuild Iraq and subject our soldiers to all those IUDs.
Well, and that's the ultimate, failure right there is to, by all accounts, we were going to walk over the skeletal remnants of Saddam Hussein's army in a couple of weeks. I think everyone...
They did.
Knew that. But for whatever reason, and this is the problem with reading your own press clipping, buying the prol feed, as Orwell would say it. And when Republicans were telling, the masses, when they were appearing at the Fox News sit down and shut up liberal rallies, that we will be greeted with flowers and chocolates. The problem is that it's when you make that pitch, that's dishonest enough. Where you really cause damage is when you're stupid enough to believe it yourself.
Let's test each other and see if we can agree on what started it all. And I
haven't even gotten talk about the, fresh out of Bible college morons they sent to reestablish Iraqi society, the free marketeer, libertarian, like literally fresh out of school kids they sent to put together a stock exchange, the billions, I mean, literally pallets of cash generally used to buy loyalty just completely went missing. I mean, you name it, this Bush administration went out of their way to screw it up, up to and including, no bid contracts to Halliburton and Kellogg Brown Root that were literally killing our soldiers and giving them rotten food.
Well, would you agree that the looting of some museums and some artifacts were being stolen, and the Democrats started howling? Would you agree that's where it all started unraveling?
No, I think it all started unraveling on September 11th. I think it all started unraveling the minute, Bush, Cheney, and we know this happened. This isn't, some Democratic underground type of, but saying, find a link to Saddam Hussein. That was one of the top priorities post-September 11th. And even though we knew that, Al-Qaeda and the Saddam Hussein Ba'ath Party did not get along, as secular governments and religious zealots tend to not mix very well. We were, dead set on finding a link, and that storyline was pushed to the point where I think a disturbing percentage of Americans still believe that Saddam Hussein had something to do.
I think they were going on the best intelligence they had at the
with
time.
9/11.
I think John Kerry had that same intelligence.
No, the members of the Senate, members of the House do not get the same access that the White House does. That was one of the excuses that Republicans throw. Democrats did it too. One, are you admitting then it was a stupid thing to do? Because let's start with that.
The Bill Clinton administration. Bill Clinton himself was warning about Saddam's nuclear aspirations and his chemical and biological weapons.
Well, we know he had aspirations. He just didn't have any capability after we stopped selling it to him. That's why Bill Clinton was smart enough not to listen to the people for the new American century and invade Iraq, because he understood what would come next, and they had to wait until someone was dumb enough.
Novel thing I'm guessing you never thought of
to not ponder the second half.
We funded both sides of a lot of wars because we wanted them people to fight each other to a stalemate. So one dictator didn't have command over a nuclear bomb and a big chunk of the oil resources in the world. Have you ever thought of that?
I think there's a little more to it. Mostly opening up lines of defense spending. You're talking literally billions and billions of dollars.
In these wars, we used other people to fight proxy wars for us.
Well, yeah, that's just a sad relic of the Cold War.
Okay. I want to talk about two things today. Pick your choice. Sean Smith or Honey Boo Boo?
I'll choose C, none of the above.
Well, which one sounds more interesting?
Neither. I mean, Honey Boo Boo is simply Idiocracy, the series.
Well, I'm glad we can agree on that.
So what do you want to say about my acquaintance Sean Smith, a.k.a. Viola?
Well, starting with Hillary Clinton dodgering the Senate and the Congress for months, and finally come in the 11th hour
and laying the smackdown
and gave 5 hours of her time. Did it seem kind of ironic to you? Was it just me that magically the John Kerry confirmation happened the very next day? That was just ironic, wasn't it?
No, the John Kerry nomination and passage happened so fast because that's what Republicans wanted. They didn't want Susan Wright, not because she spoke, the lines she was given by the intelligence community on the Sunday shows. They want a special election in the Massachusetts Senate. Now they know John Kerry, again, didn't just desire the Secretary of State job. He lobbied for it, and he was not the president's first pick. So this was an opportunity again. going behind the scene, again, the stuff that they don't talk about with David Gregory or Chris Wallace.
Yeah.
All right, you give us a scalp, all right, and you get your Chuck Hagel through, and you get your other candidates.
Well, here's what I want to know about Sean Smith.
All right.
I listened to your show for 2 days, or two times, and I didn't want to comment.
Wish more of it had sunk in.
I didn't want to comment on it, so I went home and I listened to everybody I respect on it and everybody I didn't respect on it, and I come to some conclusion on my own because I didn't want to start opening my mouth about something because this was all during the Mitt Romney. I heard you on just ramrodding Mitt Romney for his comments too quickly after the Benghazi attack.
We didn't even know everything that had happened. He was buying into the crazy. Which was everything from, remember when Obama just wouldn't answer the phone to let those people die, to Ambassador Stevens was sodomized by the mob.
So was he?
You remember all those
was he or
stories?
Was he? I don't know.
No, he was not.
Okay.
In fact, when you watch the video, they show, local residents, saying, he is alive, God is great. And they carried him literally on their shoulders to a hospital.
Okay, well, here's what you said. Here's what I recall you saying. You were saying that your friend, Sean, was somebody who was going to be left behind to destroy classified information.
Correct. Let's just stop for a second and explain. And this is what I learned from Sean Smith himself. The Marines that are at these diplomatic consuls and embassies, their job is to make sure that classified materials, all right, don't leave. I mean, the joke that Sean Smith made was the best way to ensure your safety is to stuff some secret down your pants and make sure a Marine sees you do it.
Yeah, but then I heard Sean was one of the first guys killed.
Yes, he was one of the people who sticks behind when it's get out. And what we didn't know at the time, and what I don't know if Mitt Romney knew at the time, was it wasn't a safe house down the block. It was a CIA annex. It was a CIA facility. And I don't even know if officially that's been acknowledged yet. But we learned that on C-SPAN. Remember when House Republicans wanted to hold their inquisition?
Okay.
And when the State Department put up their map, Republicans freaked out. Why? Because they had been briefed on, this is CIA annex, this is top secret information, we don't reveal this to anyone. And as soon as, the State Department started talking around it, Republicans, being spazzes, freaked out, which basically confirmed the suspicion and why there was the, wall of confusion.
Okay, but
around the annex situation.
Not too terribly long after that, it was then stated on a couple of news networks that there was information that got taken. There was sensitive information that got taken.
See, the reports I read said that sensitive information wasn't taken, wasn't lost, wasn't out in the open.
Okay, but in the hearings, Hillary stated that this was an outpost and there was no sensitive information there. So what was he protecting?
There was probably no State Department secret information there, and I would bet you money that there was CIA information there, whether that was, this was one of those, black sites, the underground prisons. Were we holding people there? I mean, we may never know because this is what happens with the CIA.
Greg Gutfield had a great line. He's pretty funny guy.
That would be a first.
He said, "What difference does it make now? What difference does it make now? I ran over your dog. Okay, I'm going to take responsibility for running over your dog, and I'm going to absolve myself of this taking this responsibility by saying, well, let's move forward so I don't run over your dog again." That's basically what Hillary went up there and told the Congress and the Senate. What difference does it make? The guy's dead. The dog's dead. I already ran over it. So I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to take the bullet here, so to speak.
And what did she say after that?
Well, tell me what exactly responsibility means to you. What does it mean? She was up there posturing for her new job, her new career, whatever her plans are of trying to run Chelsea or run herself in 2016.
It looks more and more like she will, and I wish her luck. After the slings and the arrows Republicans have thrown at her, it will be fun to see her in a position to throw them back.
What does responsibility mean? We have 4 people.
It means obviously our security was not up to snuff, and that doesn't just mean put more Marines there. That means if you're going to put a CIA annex there, and if this consul, right, if this State Department annex, right, is tied in with the CIA, there needs to be a lot more care taken, because when it comes to things like embassies, you know who guards the Canadian embassy in Washington, D.C.? We do.
That's right. The functioning government is responsible for the security.
Correct. And
the functioning government allows security detail. They have to give permission for whatever security detail comes into the country to guard said whoever. But that brings me to my next problem here with this thing. First off, there was no functioning government in Libya.
No, that's not true. Ambassador Stevens was working very closely with the functioning, not strong by any means, certainly not anything that we'd be familiar with here in America. But yes, there was a functioning Libyan government. He was the point man
over there to help take down Gaddafi's regime. So my point is, if you have a disabled, at best, functioning government, my whole question is, what was he doing over there, period, to be killed? Because if you've got a country...
Should we not have had, State Department officials? Should we not have had ambassadors over there in the building of a new federal government?
As we just agreed upon,
in Libya?
The functioning government has to okay the security detail.
No, they don't have to okay it. They're responsible for it. It's not a check sheet they sign off on.
Yes, that's right.
They provide it.
But if we have any auxiliary detail over there, that has to be approved by the host government. They're not just going to let a bunch of people with the automatic weapons and stuff come in their country and nobody knows who these people are.
Well, actually, technically, that is sovereign territory. If you can go to, let's say, Ron Paul Paradise in Somalia. All right. If we had an embassy there, that would be considered sovereign American territory. So we can pretty much, do what we want.
But this was not sovereign American territory by anybody's imagination, and the government was disabled.
Yeah, technically it was.
My question is, what was the guy doing over there? Number one,
helping rebuild a government, helping strengthen the government is there, and looking out for our interests. Any other questions?
This guy's got the bullseye on his back.
From whom?
From the remnants of the Gaddafi regime, because he was the point man at taking them down.
Yeah, you know what? He volunteered to go over there. I mean, that's why these people are far more badass than we give them
but the bottom
credit
line
for.
Is when he's pleading for more security, why wasn't it sent to him?
Where was the request for more security?
The emails and the things.
The embassy in Tripoli, Frank.
The State Department.
Yeah, they wanted more security in Tripoli.
And Hillary said she wasn't aware of it, so it was her underlings who was responsible for not bringing that to her attention. But nobody's been fired. There's 3
what are you talking about? Yes, multiple people were fired, Frank.
3 people on paid leave.
No, there were multiple people fired, including the head of embassy security.
According to what she said on...
Actually, I take that back. I believe he was allowed to resign. I believe he, quit, as they say.
According to what she said at the hearings, there was 3 people on paid leave, and there was 1 person who they wanted to hold responsible for it, but they were being surveilled. They had been let go, and they were being surveilled, under surveillance.
Okay.
So who's been held responsible for it? Nobody, in my mind, according to Hillary, has been fired. She is...
What do you think should happen, Frank?
Well, I think there ought to be a little bit more of an investigation instead of an old age
Oh,
hearing.
please. Are you kidding me? Republicans have been running about Benghazi for months, pretty much since September 12th. Benghazi. The problem is,
I think Hillary ought to be put under oath.
What do you think congressional testimony is, Frank?
There's what they do in public, and then there's what they do behind closed doors.
Okay,
the more sensitive stuff.
We've had closed door.
The stuff that
meetings.
they're showing in public.
Here's the problem, Frank, is we have a Republican Party that is back crap insane, and I still.
The Democrats are back crap insane.
There's a difference, Frank. We have back crap insane Democrats. You want to know what the difference is? We don't put them in positions of power like Michelle Bachmann, Eric Cantor, and the like.
No.
We get rid of our Cynthia.
Alan Grace.
We get rid of our Cynthia McKinneys. We get rid of our Dennis Kuciniches.
Okay, let's see you get rid of Bob Menendez.
If the investigation comes up that he was banging underage prostitutes, yeah, we should.
But
do you find it funny that Republicans, including their media arm like Tucker Carlson, the dweeb in the bow tie, made such a big deal out of this, and voters in New Jersey still sent him back? If I were you, I would see that as a sign of a bigger problem, and that the American people see us as the party that cries wolf, the party that cries conspiracy, the party that cries outrage day in, day out, and no one's listening to it. I'm still waiting to hear, by the way, for all these Republicans who say that Benghazi's bigger than Watergate. What was the conspiracy supposed to be? What is the root of the conspiracy?
Here's the most coherent explanation I can give you. Okay.
Not saying much, but okay.
Okay.
Damning with faint praise.
Barack Obama had a twofold message going on. First off, he was launching Tomahawk missiles from submarines that took out the communications and the radar installations for the French pilots to go in and do the bombing. So he's going to tap dance all over the War Powers Act, and he's going to say, well, I'm not at war, but I'm really at war. So he's trying to have it both ways so he can...
Okay, but what's the conspiracy?
The conspiracy is that his Libya policy was a failure, and as a result of his Libya policy being a failure...
Libya policy was a big success. Muammar Gaddafi, not around anymore.
That's when you killed the first ambassador since 1979, and we killed 4 Americans over there. How's that a success? Listen, when the Toomey guy, the Arizona Cardinal football player who gave up his millions of dollars in salary to go join the military.
Now, by the way, there's an actual conspiracy.
Okay, listen.
To cover up the details of his death because it would be BPR.
It's no shame. Do you know how many people during World War II was shot by friendly fire?
Okay, then why, when it came to the story of Jessica Lynch, when it came to the story of Pat Tillman, all right, did we not get the details? And do you consider what we're getting from Benghazi to be the same? Because if so, I'm going to call you a crazy person. Frank, are you a crazy person?
Listen, all I know is that
Frank, are you a crazy person?
No, there were certain people embarrassed that a football star gave up his life, and for it to come out that he had been shot by friendly fire. I don't happen to think. I think you're just as much of a hero if you're shot by friendly fire as you're shot by the enemy fire.
I would agree, but I would then say don't burn his uniform.
So the point is, there was a cover up there. I'm not disagreeing.
Thanks. And hold on. What was the purpose of the cover up? What was the purpose?
Because they did
misdirection.
not want to shed bad. They did not want to shed no negative light.
They didn't want bad light, so they told a different story. Now, when Jessica Lynch, remember her?
Yes.
All right, and you remember the story about the brave raid and she being liberated.
Yeah.
And do you know what the real story behind Jessica Lynch's rescue was? Iraqis took her to a hospital where Iraqis were tending to her injuries.
Yeah.
Okay. Why, again, was that story fabricated out of thin air?
What was fabricated? Refresh my memory. My memory serves.
Oh, no, they released,
She was captured.
Special force. She wasn't captured.
What?
She was she was taken by Iraqis to a hospital and being treated by Iraqi doctors.
But was she raped in the meantime?
No.
Well, the story.
So yes, the story bore little resemblance to the reality, and the PR machine, and the Pentagon has one of the finest in the history of mankind.
I don't dispute that.
Okay, but hold on. What was the purpose of that conspiracy? We're going somewhere with this.
Yes, if I'm following your logic, I would say they were trying to generate support for the war by showing a poor, pitiful girl that was abused by Iraqis, so let's go get the Iraqis.
That might be the most cogent answer you've ever given me to any question ever. Kudos to you, Frank. So now, let's take that. What is the conspiracy alleged around Benghazi?
Well, as I started to say, the first conspiracy would be that Obama come out and said Al-Qaeda's on the run, and did not want it
is
to
on
be
the
known.
run.
He did not want it to be known prior to the election that Al-Qaeda was alive and well in Africa, in northern Africa. And we're now finding out that they're alive and well in Mali. We're finding out they're alive and well in other places.
I don't know. They're kind of getting their ass kicked in Mali by the French, of all people.
But that's the point. Why are they there?
Because there's very little public sentiment in the United States to open up any more engagement.
If Obama's
is the main reason.
If Obama's got them all on the run, and they're falling over themselves in retreat, then what are they doing there? So that would shed bad light on his policy. Okay, so
but hold on, but I don't think that's the
your logic. Then try to follow my logic here. Is that's why the explanation is being given that it was all about a movie trailer, because he's got two things at stake.
Frank. Now we know that the protests in Cairo, which were on the same day, thanks to time zones, predated. Because remember, the original attack was that the Obama administration, because the embassy in Cairo tweeted that, hey, just because, these people made this movie, that doesn't represent all Americans. That was the Obama administration. Okay. Here's why no one believes Republicans, Frank, is they literally see shadows and conspiracy behind everything. And as the story evolves, it started with a tweet from the Cairo embassy. Hold on. It started with a tweet. That became an outrage. And then we found out that Sean Smith had died.
Look,
and that was a manufactured outrage. Then we learned about the ambassador and the Navy SEALs. And that was, it's just they go on from outrage to outrage, and people aren't buying it.
You've heard the old story with friends like
you. Still can't give me a concrete reason. Because if you just say,
give you two concrete reasons.
One, the American people disagree with you. All right. Outside of Fox News and AM radio, they don't think Obama's, foreign policy is a failure.
Trotted Susan Rice out to tell that story, and why wasn't Hillary Clinton
the CIA
out to tell that story? Why didn't Hillary bite the bullet and go out and tell that story?
Because you're probably not going to see her do the Sunday shows or any Secretary of State a week after an event like that. I don't care if your Secretary of State is Henry Kissinger or Thomas Jefferson.
With friends like you, the old saying goes, who needs enemies? In other words, if you're not upset by some amount of cover-up over your friend's
I don't believe that there's a cover-up any more than keeping the CIA's name out of it. That's the screwy factor here. And by the way, this is why Republicans like John McCain and jumped all over this, is because they knew that the conversation would never be completely transparent. Frank, listen. As long as the CIA was involved, so they decided to use it as leverage. Now, again, that's not defending CIA secrecy. I think they're one of the most bumbling, inept organizations we have.
If I'm to understand you correctly, this is all lays on the doorstep of our intelligence.
Well, yeah. I don't think we would be having this conversation now if it weren't for the CIA veil of secrecy.
Memory that CIA budgets and intelligence budgets overall were cut severely during the Clinton administration. But beyond that, if it is the intelligence responsibility, during the campaign, not the campaign, but during the debate between Joe Biden and Paul Ryan, Joe Biden made the statement that when this red line, this red line, when Iran crosses, that goes too far, and there's a nuclear weapon that starts threatening Israel, we're going to know about this immediately because of our intelligence. But if I'm to get you straight, our intelligence is a bunch of bumbling idiots. So
generally, yes.
How are we going to know when this red line's there?
Right? How do you know if your nuclear weapon works?
I guess you fire one off.
Okay. You believe that is something that either through seismic vibrations, via radiation released, you think that's something we might be able to pick up via satellite or sensor?
At that point, it's a little late. When you start firing stuff up underground, it's too late. They've already got it. The point that the Israelis was making is, here's our red line in the sand.
Yes, yes, I've heard Iran is 6 months away from a nuclear weapon. You know when I've been hearing that since? 1982. So yeah, our secure.
Well, how long did we hear about North Korea and when and where they were going to have their nuclear weapons?
We still don't know for sure that they have.
Well, supposedly we've got the bumblings underground and the sensitivity that they fired stuff off.
Yeah, and one of the leading theories on that is that it may have just been a literally huge stack of dynamite let off. North Korea has very little going for it. They need some sort of leverage.
So they're
to get us to send them food.
According to you, they may be bluffing.
Yeah. I mean, this goes back, really to, glorious Juche Revolution. North Korea, I mean, is a backwards country beyond, I think, most people's
what do you believe about
imagination.
What do you believe about the threats of the IBM style missiles, intercontinental missiles that they're thinking that they could hit the U.S. with? Is that a bluff? Is that bluster?
I think they would like that option. Again, they want a saber to rattle. They want a seat at the table so they can demand food, aid, and technology, not just from us. But also from their one ally, China, again, who's pretty much in bed with us. They want it from Japan. They want it from South Korea.
And weren't they given some of those things during the Clinton administration, and they continued to do their research right under our nose?
Actually, it wasn't until the Bush administration really kind of pulled the rug out.
Because he wanted six-party talks. He didn't want no one-on-one talks with Korea because we don't want to make it out. So
we pull the rug out from under them, and we're surprised they start trying to acquire fissile materials. This sounds shocking to you, Frank?
But what this sounds shocking is to me is it sounds like Bush had a better attitude and a better strategy because you...
Really? Then why are they trying to build intercontinental ballistic missiles right now, Frank?
Because the more people you involve, if you can get the Russians involved and you can get the Chinese involved and you can get other people involved...
Okay, before Bush, they weren't trying to put together intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Okay,
now they are. Are you saying that the Bush administration was a success?
When we had tight sanctions...
I wouldn't answer that one if I were you either.
I'll answer it by saying this. When we had tight restrictions on Saddam Hussein during the first Gulf War, how was he getting stuff in his country? He was getting it in through Iran. He was getting it in through Russia.
Well, it turns out most of it he wasn't getting in.
You can't make sanctions work unless you got other people willing to enforce them. So that's why Bush was encouraging the six-party talks instead of some one-on-one.
So why blow up the deal we have to get a new deal? You can't try to negotiate a new deal? Are we incapable of walking and chewing gum at the same time? Is that your assertion, Frank?
I'm not here to defend the policy or not defend the policy. I'm just saying what I felt Bush was coming across with is the more people we can involve in this, the better.
Possibly, but why screw up the situation to try to make that happen? What was the long-term benefit of that, and do you believe that it worked?
Well, no, we have a lot of things that aren't working. We have a lot of policies that aren't working in this country.
Progress.
I'm not bragging about all our foreign policies.
Yeah, most of it is very short-sighted.
But what I'm telling you
most of it is stupid.
We've got the guy who's coming in and saying, hey, look, everybody else has done it wrong. I'm going to come in and do it right. And look where he does. He's a fumbling, bumbling, stumbling clod. Over there.
I think most of America, again, would disagree. You're living in the right-wing bubble right now, Frank, if you believe that
if you think
Barack Hussein, Super Allah, Obama, B-Rock, the Islamic Shock, peace be upon him, is a miserable failure on the foreign policy or national defense side. Right? That was the argument that Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan tried and failed miserably
I told you
to make because it only exists in the Republican bubble.
I told you that I supported some of his efforts in getting Gaddafi and getting bin Laden, but he was too late in doing it. He should have done it 3 or 4 months sooner than he did. And why not just go in and say, here's what I'm going to do? But he had to appease the Cindy Sheehan's peoples of the world who voted for him. He's a Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Frank, seriously, now you're just pulling stuff out of your ass. Literally, you're telling me that the man with his own kill list bends over backwards to appease Cindy Sheehan? Because if so, that's one of the dumbest opinions you have ever offered me.
I said the Cindy Sheehan
hands of the world. Yes, the man with his own. Hold on, the man with his own kill list is bending over backwards to appease the Cindy Sheehans. Do you know how stupid you sound right now?
Where's all the code pinks? If I'm so stupid, where's all the code pinks that showed up at every George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, any kind of a hearing that we had?
They're still showing up. You watch more C-SPAN.
I do. I watch C-SPAN all the time.
All right. Well, try ingesting some of it.
But you still haven't given me a satisfactory answer.
You're not giving me reality. Whatever reality you want to create. Sean Hannity will help you.
Why not just bite the bullet and go in
further.
And say, we're going to take Saddam out, go in and use our force.
Because we waited for a sign-off from the Arab League. That's the answer. We waited for the sign-off from the Arab League.
So we're going to go around, we're going to conduct our foreign policy according to what everybody else wants us to do. When we start, George Bush the first tried that. No. You all point to George Herbert Walker Bush as a model, but Al Gore wouldn't even vote for the first Gulf War.
Frank, we waited for the Arab League to get their sign-off because we didn't want to inflame other regions in the area and cause, a half dozen bushfires.
And you don't think we inflame people?
I know we inflame people. We do stupid stuff all the time.
What did Louis Farrakhan have to say about our president?
I don't know, and I don't care, because please explain to me what relevance Louis Farrakhan has on our national conversation. Yeah, you pretty much nailed it on that one. All right, 244-0077. Email radiobradshaw@gmail.com and follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/radiobradshaw. I'm still waiting to hear, by the way, what the... they're trying to cover up that it was a screw-up in Benghazi. We know it was a screw-up in Benghazi. What's the conspiracy? What's the grand truth that the Illuminati is trying to hide? Other than it was a CIA annex and maybe one of their black ops sites. For example, the 2 Navy SEALs who lost their life in the Benghazi attack, we know weren't there as security. They were in Libya. Looking to collect surface-to-air missiles, man-pads. They would find them, gather them, and destroy them because that's not the kind of thing you want just floating around. They tend to find their way into bad hands or into Lockerbie, Scotland, etc. The overarching conspiracy, other than the implication that, again, this is the appeasing the Muslims, is that literally. The purpose behind the Benghazi attack is, one, there is a bit of leverage because of CIA secrecy, and Republicans are going to take advantage of that. And two, trying to paint our president, as someone who is friendly to extremists. Apparently, they see that as a winning message. But I think that's the beginning, middle, and end of, why. The great Benghazi cover-up. And for all the yelling and smoke and flame, there wasn't a whole lot there. When I talk about the Republicans as the party that cries wolf and wolf and wolf, wolf, and Obama is a wolf. Obama appeases wolves. Obama, fewer and fewer people are buying that, and we're seeing this. This is Politico. Fox News had its worst primetime ratings amongst a key group of viewers since 2001 in January. This is the 25-54 money demographic. Just for an example, all of my performance bonuses were based on 25-54 ratings, and that is, and there's three of them. There's persons, that's everyone between the ages of 25 and 54 tuning in, and there's also women 25-54 and men 25-54. So those kind of three are your heavy hitters, and the lowest rating since 2001, since the Bush inauguration. And it was kind of across the board. Also, we see WABC in New York. This is the station that launched Rush Limbaugh, launched Sean Hannity, and really should be considered a crime against humanity, launched Mark Levin. It was kind of the alpha and the omega when it came to conservative talk. They just hit a 20-year low. This is why you're seeing Republican movement on immigration. This is why you're seeing, you will see Republican movement on, probably not an assault weapons ban, but I think it's pretty much fait accompli at this point that we are going to close the gun show loopholes. If you watched any of the Senate hearings yesterday, Republican, the ship is turning. It doesn't, has heavy mass and kind of a small rudder, but it is turning. Because this isn't working anymore. Short a what's turning out to look like a fluke in 2010, a throw the bums out election where Democrats had tons more bums after two wave elections in a row. We had a ton more bums than Republicans, and for all the hooting and the howling, man, I remember day after election day 2010, Republicans doing cartwheels and stuff. We're coming for you in 2012. How'd that turn out? Republicans have to find something that works for them other than the manufactured outrage of the day. Turns out no one's really going to base their vote on Obama giving the Queen an iPod. Remember, that was a real, legitimate outrage of the day on Fox News. All their attempts to, again, go after the president. He's a stuffed suit who relies on a teleprompter and can't get anything done, and at the same time is an all-encompassing tyrant out to destroy capitalism, which, again, considering that the Dow and the NASDAQ are headed towards records, he's the worst destroyer of capitalism ever. The deficit is down from when he took office. The economy is improving. Seriously, worst socialist ever. No one's buying it's gone too far away from reality. Right? If we're living in the timeline, right? Doc Brown, this flux capacitor, right? Republicans are in 1955 with Michael J. Fox as Calvin Klein. Their version of reality has diverged so far from where the rest of us live, it's not working anymore. It's turning people off, and people are turning them off. So it'll be fun to see how Rupert Murdoch, again, Australian, magnate, the guy calling for Obama to do something about guns, but also owns Fox News, along with the Saudi prince, but you'll never hear his name brought up. I wonder why. Again, at the end of the day, he's not about pushing an agenda. Like he's reaching a market that I guess is very lucrative, that they fire catheters from home crowd has to be incredibly lucrative, or whatever he's doing to appeal to these folks. But if these ratings don't turn around, you're going to see a big change in Fox News, and that'll be fun. Going to be fun to watch the Rascal Scooter Brigade's head explode over that one. Maybe we'll talk about the gun hearing tomorrow if we have some time, because there was a lot of interesting stuff. Again, Democrats have no better tool right now than Republicans talking, and talk they did yesterday. All right, we'll reconvene tomorrow at 1:30 here on The Brad Show on Webcast One Live. Thank you for watching. We'll be back same bad time, same bad channel tomorrow. I will see you then.